Homelessness is a monumental problem in the U.S. right now, one that we count in the hundreds of thousands. But BYU alum Brent Crane doesn't count by the thousands or even the hundreds. As director of the Food and Care Coalition of Provo, Utah, he connects with people struggling with homelessness one by one.
When you're serving 3 meals a day and you're providing showers and laundry, you're providing these basic services. And to me, what that meant was we have a relationship, a real genuine relationship with our clients. They're just not some number in a line to get a driver's license or, not to belittle the DMV or anything like that. But it's more personal. It's about people. And we've got to suck up our pride sometimes and don't worry. Are they going to spend that money right? Or are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Develop the relationship, connect with them in a real way, and everything else will take care of itself.
Welcome to the Y Magazine podcast, bringing you ideas, stories, and voices from Brigham Young University. Today, we're going to talk to Brent Crane about the innovative ways the Food and Care Coalition is helping the homeless population of Utah County. But first, let's take Brent's lead and start by learning about some of the people the coalition serves. When I asked him for stories about how the Food and Care Coalition has impacted its clients, Brent told me about a pair of sisters who grew up in Springville, Utah.
They grew up in a pretty rough home. Their early childhood was mom and dad. One was a meth addict, one was an alcoholic. They always were housed. Somehow the mom and dad were able to provide a home, but a lot of times they didn't have running water. They didn't have heat in the home. And those two young ladies decided to run away from home in their mid-teens. And they started train hopping.
Wow.
And eventually the path led back to Provo. When they came back, one was a meth addict and one was a blackout drunk, meaning they drank until they passed out, had no control to moderate the drinking. And yet, when you talk with them, when you met them, you knew that there was a lot of goodness there. One sister actually worked in our work training program. She helped us in our kitchen as well. We grew to love her tremendously. And, in the early days, I thought, there's no hope. She will never turn from this alcohol addiction she has. But she did.
Wow.
And for the last 10 years of life, she was housed. And she had a dear friend that she lived with. And she was substance abuse free. And she was out serving in the community. She was gardening. She just had a lot of joy, reconnected with a lot of her family. Now, her sister, she was a meth addict. She came into our dental clinic. And the doctor came in and said, we'd love to restore your mouth. But it's evident that you have an active addiction. And until that gets under control, we can't do anything. And so she didn't do anything for several years. We still saw her. We still provided services. We didn't do anything with the dental because it just would have been back to square one in a very short period of time. But I remember her struggling. She really wanted to go back to school. She really was looking for work. She had 5 kids.
Oh, wow.
And yet she was still going in and out of this roller coaster of addiction. And one day, her daughter started down the path of drugs. And she walked in and she said, I'm ready to change. I need to change. I cannot let this pass to another generation. And so she came in, she got full mouth restoration. And within a month, she was in school at UVU. Within 2 or 3 weeks, she actually got a job, and she had been looking for years. And, she changed the entire path of her life. In the family science world, we call that a transitional character. She can become a transformative person in the next generation's life to where now maybe school and stability and a life without addiction can now pass to the next generation. And boy, I'll tell you, some of the strongest people I've ever seen. People that can beat addiction are far stronger than you or I. I mean, because it is such a massive hole to come from.
It's people like this and the hundreds of others who come to the Food and Care Coalition for meals, housing, and other services that keep volunteers flocking to the 4.5-acre campus in South Provo to help each year, a large portion of them BYU students.
Bishops and pastors and ministers came together and said, hey, this is overwhelming for any one congregation. Let's look to starting an organization to address it. And so that was the birth of the Food and Care Coalition.
Emphasis on the word coalition. From the start, the organization pooled the resources of different religious denominations and different community organizations to figure out the best way to help people who needed food, shelter, and mental health treatment, among other things. That same year, Brent was starting his own journey as a freshman at BYU. Then he was called on a mission to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where this farm boy raised in a community in the Bear Lake Valley saw true poverty for the first time. When he got home from his mission in 1989 and resumed studies at BYU, his first move was to switch his major from business to family, home, and social sciences. His next move was a little unconventional.
I read the church welfare manual. It's actually one of the first things I did when I was going through school. And I don't know why. Why would I pick up the welfare manual for the church, right? But when I read that, I just felt like, yeah, this is home. This feels right.
Brent soon discovered the Food and Care Coalition, which by this time had acquired a very humble headquarters in South Provo, and he started working for them as an intern. In 1993, the year he graduated, he became the executive director.
Back in the days, it was an old roach-infested 1,500 square foot home. Our dining room was 2 8-foot tables. Our kitchen was like a galley kitchen. One person could go in it at a time. We've grown now to a 4.5-acre campus. We're located in South Provo. We started construction in 2007, 2008, finished in 2009, moved in. When you walk into our facility, it's not ostentatious, but it's nice and it's
And
well
clean.
maintained. We put a lot of thought on, art. We put out a call for art into the community. All the art in the building's all donated. We didn't purchase one art item. We put thought into what quotes and thoughts and inspiration would be on the walls throughout the facility. We didn't want it to be a stark, white, sterile environment. So there's color throughout the building. And so when people came in, the payoff was that first morning when we opened the doors and the clients came in and they just mouths agape, and a lot of tears. And to me, that's when I knew that we had done the right thing. We were on the right path. We had taken an old junkyard. It was the prior business there was an auto junkyard. Had a rail spur right down the middle of it, right on the railroad tracks. And even though we ended up down by the railroad tracks where a lot of people in the community had inferred we should be, which I didn't like, we transformed that property and had beautiful views of Y Mountain and Temp. We now have 3 permanent on-site partners. Wasatch Behavioral Health, they have their whole entire homeless and jail transition team that are stationed in our building.
Wow.
And what they bring to the table is additional case management, nurse prescriber services, and therapists. The next one was Mountainland Health Center.
Okay.
And they came in and not only, assumed the dental role within our facility, but they also started providing medical services.
Wow.
So our clients before then, they were going to our most costly health exchange, which is at the ERs. So they were either going unserved, hadn't seen a family practitioner in years or decades, or they were utilizing costly resource. And so by having that clinic there on site with PAs and nurses and support staff, they serve, close to 1,000 people a year through our facility. And it's pretty amazing, some of the stories. So that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're providing somebody a meal. Great. That's a wonderful service in and of itself. You're providing housing. That's great. But what are we doing to impact lasting change where people can live their best versions of themselves and and find hope and see themselves, because so many of our clients come in and really struggle with self-evaluation and self-love. And it's something that we really wanted to focus on.
Let's just go from the client's perspective. If I'm somebody who's been sleeping on the street, I find out about this Food and Care Coalition, what does my journey look like?
They would probably come in, they'd probably feel a little uncomfortable. Probably, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what this place is about. But when they come in, they're going to walk into some place that's clean, that, has a lot of uplifting thoughts and art throughout. And they're going to meet a staff that are going to come in and say, hey, how can we help you? First orders, they'll meet with our client services manager and they'll go through an intake, 15, 20 minutes. We go through, what our rules of engagement are, which are all centered around mutual respect. So we just give them those rules up front. And then we go through and we list all the services that are available, is to make sure that they connect to what they immediately need. So oftentimes it's just a meal. They want to come in, they're hungry, they're cold, and they want a meal. So they'll be directed into the dining hall where they'll be able to get their meals 3 times a day. So when we serve our meals, instead of going through a soup line and having to face all these volunteers or staff or helpers, it's our volunteers and our staff that go out and serve the tray restaurant style at the table. Subtle change, but a big difference in terms of the dignity of the experience. We have 106,000 meals served through 3 meals a day, every day of the week, including Sundays and holidays. So Sundays we do a lunch with a sack lunch to go. Holidays we do the same thing.
Oh, nice.
So there's always food there. We've got shower facilities, laundry facilities. We've got a barber shop on site that we have several hair schools in the area come in and volunteer.
Oh, that's cool.
Private stylists and barbers come in and use the space and help our clients look great as they're going out and searching for work. And so that client services manager will go out into the dining room during the meal times, and sometimes she'll take a little service cart that will have a few hygiene items on it, just to say, hey, does anybody like some soap? Or, hey, we had these chapsticks come in. Anybody would like a chapstick? It allows her to connect with the clients while they're still receiving a service. And we do announcements. We let people know, hey, there's a provider here on site today that isn't here every day. Maybe it's the Veterans Administration. Maybe we're doing a big haircut blitz or something. The challenge we face is when it comes to meals, we can make sure everybody gets a meal. But we know, like right now, our housing, we have 110 units of housing on site, 38 transitional and 72 permanent. Every one of them are occupied and being used. And so if you're new coming in, there's not a new bed right there immediately available to you. You have to apply to it. Then we get you on a waiting list. The good thing is there was some legislation a few years ago that mandated that counties open a warming center during the winter months. Okay. So there'll be an overflow shelter. It's basically a warehouse that's in South Provo, where people can go in if they are not housed, and at least be safe and be warm and, receive some hygiene products or, cup of soups or something like that to tide them over until they come into our facility the following day. We now have 11 buildings on the campus, ranging from, our main building to housing to the hydroponics to partner building, education building, that kind of thing.
I'm going to jump in here to talk about the hydroponics building Brent just mentioned. A few years ago, the Food and Care Coalition asked BYU and UVU to study its meal program and give suggestions for improvement. They concluded that the program was heavy on carbs and light on veggies, especially in the winter. But BYU professor Matt Arrington had a solution. Hydroponics, a system for growing vegetables indoors year-round with nutrient-rich water instead of soil.
Hydroponics was an opportunity for us to, grow our own greens and be able to have kind of pretty much salads every single meal in perpetuity because of the way the system is set up and designed and how quickly it produces, produce.
That's incredible.
We're here to set the table. And so for me, the Food and Care Coalition is significant in that we've set the table for the community to come together with a population that has needs, and there's sometimes very deep set needs. Some of them may never escape the challenges that they're facing, but we can at least love them and pull them into the fold.
Well, even the way you talk about your clients and calling them clients speaks to the dignity that you keep bringing up. What are some of the core issues that you are trying to solve for these people?
There's lots of different gateways to homelessness. It could be upbringing in a lot of different ways. Did a family value education? Did they not? Are you dealing with mental health issues? Are you coming from generational poverty? Are you dealing with addiction issues that are then closing doors for you? There's, and then, you got people aging out of the foster care system. When I looked at it, to me, most of our social ills go back to a lack of personal connection, whether that was either them feeling isolated from their family, distance from the community. A lot of times we come into it as a community. I want to come in and fix something,
Yeah.
And when we imply that, we're implying something's broken, or that we can put input A and input B and always get out product C, right? And we're dealing with complex people, and there's biological factors, there's emotional factors, there's skills or lack of skill set issues. There's all kinds of things that factor into why somebody walks through our door. If you didn't have a home to go to tonight, it's not just a roof overhead. That home has attachment to family. That's the connector to your neighborhood and your friends and your pet and your sanctuary and your entertainment hub and your place to build and develop your family the way you want to. When you don't have that home, it is not healthy. It is not good for the soul. And we really need to keep that in mind as we're going about trying to serve people. One of the things that I've always been impressed with is the resiliency of the human spirit. Here are people that will never go on a vacation. Here are people that will never know wellness. We had a gal that had struggled with schizophrenia her whole life. She had come from Australia. She was really hard to serve because she was one of those that was like, if you brought her soup, wasn't the right kind. If you did her hair, it wasn't right, So she was one of those that kind of taught me that service and charity are two different things. Service is something that we often do, when it's convenient. True charity is rarely convenient. And it usually causes you to stretch. And so it was interesting, after many, many years of coming and going, revolving door through our facility, we finally connected her actually to a ward that the Relief Society and the whole ward took her under her wing and made her feel a part of their community. And it was interesting. She came down with cancer, and she had not seen her two daughters back in Australia for 25 years. And so her two Relief Society sisters decided they were going to help her get ready, take care of her things here, and get her ready to fly to Australia. And they were going to fly with her to meet her daughters.
Wow.
The night before they're to leave, they were there, they were doing her hair, they were getting, the place all cleaned up and packed up and ready to go. She passed away that night, the day before she was to come back and see her daughters. Those two sisters flew her remains to Australia, met the daughters, connected, really neat experience, but came back and they asked me to be involved in the service that they had here for her. And I could tell that there was true sorrow, there was relief, and there was also a lot of confusion. They felt bad because they were like, she was not always the easiest person to serve. And I feel bad for some of the feelings I've harbored because she never could truly acknowledge our service to her because of her mental illness. I thought about the story of Abraham, and I just, I recounted briefly. We all know the story, but I said, the Lord was trying Abraham's heart. He wanted to know that Abraham was true. The fact that he had been asked by the Lord to sacrifice his son, the unthinkable, that's too far. The Lord's expecting too much. And I said, I have a feeling that some of you have felt this. You as a Ward family have been asked to go above and beyond in serving this lady who could never, never acknowledge your gifts of service and charity to her. But I said, I can tell you that her being here in your ward was probably more for you than it was for her. And I dare say she will probably be the first person on the other side to come to you and acknowledge you when you cross that veil and to say, you know what? I could never repay the kindness you guys showed me in life. And there will be some beautiful reunions on the other side when that happens. And I guarantee you, she will be one of the first people there to greet you. And that's, to me, that embodies what this is all about.
So, a lot of people don't live in Provo and can't directly be involved with your organization. If we want to start making a difference in our own community, where should we start?
For the listeners that are not here locally, it's find your why, find your cause. And for some, it may be homelessness. Some, it may be, working with troubled youth. Others, it may be working with domestic violence survivors or working in your schools. Just find a way to become civically engaged. That's what builds healthy communities. When we see people coming in and serving a meal, I just love to sit back and watch the interactions between the clients and the staff and the volunteers and the volunteers and the clients and the volunteers to volunteer.
That kind of ties into my final question. I feel like you're always kind of zooming out to the systems and then zooming into the one. I just keep thinking of just the importance of one by one.
Yeah, Liz Lemon-Swindle, member of the church, artist, she donated Seeking the One is the name of the painting, and it's in our stairwell as you go up into our residential wing. And that's the one that captures it for me. I love that painting because it's just Christ. He's looking at you, whether you're walking there by yourself or with 10 other people or 20 other people, you are the one. And I think that's really the miracle that Christ embodied when he came. He had the unbelievable ability to connect with the leper, with the highly educated, with the prostitute, with the tax collector, he could connect with anyone and make them feel like who they were, which was a son or daughter of God.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Y Magazine podcast. You can learn more about the Food and Care Coalition, including volunteer opportunities, at foodandcare.org. You can also watch a video about BYU's hydroponics partnership at the link in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, you may also enjoy Refugee Soccer, Finding Belonging Through Sport, where a BYU alum shares his efforts to help refugees find belonging in the U.S. through soccer. This episode is based on the article Opening Opportunities in the Fall 2025 issue of Y Magazine. This episode was produced by me, Whitney Singley Archibald, with executive producer Brooklyn Hughes-Romer and editing from Y Magazine intern Olivia Flynn. Original music and final production by Jarrett Davis.